Good evening. So tonight, Karen introduced herself to our library through an email. What caught my eye was that she has written screenplays for Hallmark Christmas movies. I'm a sucker for a good Hallmark Christmas movie or a cozy Christmas read. So I got right in touch with her. And in our getting acquainted visit, I discovered that we also share a history of living in Minnesota, which resulted in lots of winter snow stories between us. Now, tonight, Karen is generously going to share at the end a free book or audiobook, your choice, to somebody that is listening with us tonight. So stay tuned to discover if you are the lucky winner. So let's meet Christmas Karen.
Hi, so nice to see you, virtually see you. Hi there. Welcome to my Christmas Karen set. I am so excited to be a part of this. This is something I've been wanting to do, to reach out to people. It's so hard right now. We can't travel and visit people like we usually do. So this is my virtual Christmas camp. I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself, and then we're going to open it up for questions. And I think that's just what we need to do right now. We just need to connect with each other. And I think that's so important. So I'm honored that you are here and virtually and watching this later. So thank you. Thank you so much. It really uplifts me. So my journey, my nickname is Christmas Karen. That's usually a really good place to start because people wonder, how in the world did I get that nickname? Well, last year, the Today Show, NBC, started calling me Christmas Karen because they heard it was my nickname, but they didn't know the backstory. There's always a backstory when you're a writer, right? So it turned out my great great aunt, her family name was Day, their last name Day. And when they had a baby, I guess they'd run out of names. So they let the children, they said, you can name the child. Well, the baby was born on Christmas Day. So the children decided to name the little girl Mary, Merry, middle name Christmas, last name Day. True story. So her legal name is Merry Christmas Day, born on Christmas Day. And she was one of the first people featured in Ripley's Believe It or Not. So this Christmas Karen idea happened after I wrote 4 Christmas movies and 5 Christmas movies and 4 novels in just 3 years. And the first story is the one I want to tell you about because it's the one that sort of started everything in terms of my writing career. But before that, when I was talking with Marlis about our time in Minnesota, I started my career as a writer as a journalist. I always wanted to be a novelist. That was in my heart. My grandmother, who read a book every single day, she was with us until she was 104 years old, and they were library books. Libraries were the most important thing to her, which is why I'm here with you, because for my latest book, but it's really close to my heart because I know my grandmother is looking down on me and would want me to do something to help libraries. You all listening and watching, you know how important they are and how much we count on them, especially now during the pandemic. The ones that have been able to stay open either for curbside or to come through, they're our heart. I really, truly believe that libraries are a national treasure. So again, I'm so honored to be here and tell a little bit about my story. So when I started off as a journalist, the reason I didn't start off as a novelist, you ask, was you can tell I talk a lot, right? You can probably already tell I talk fast, I write fast. So I was given this assignment, my first creative writing assignment. I think I was in 6th grade. And I did this fabulous story, and my teacher said I got an A for creativity, an A for all of these magical things, but I got a D- grade. I've never gotten a D. I was type A times 5. I'd always gotten A's and I was, very, very upset. And she said it's because I had missed commas and that punctuation and grammar were just as important. And I believe that as well. But in my mind, I never spoke in commas, right? Do you see me pausing here? No. So I had such a hard time. And I thought I worked for weeks on this, and those little commas, this isn't going to work for me. So I decided to be a television journalist where I could talk and report and I wouldn't have to write down and wouldn't worry about those commas. But I wrote in my journal when I was a sophomore in high school that this was just the ends to a means, that I would someday be a novelist, that I was going to travel the world and tell amazing stories and meet as many people as I could. And that would all be material for me for later when I wanted to write my amazing stories. Because I grew up in a little town called Everett, Washington. If you know Boeing, we have a section of Boeing headquartered there, but very small. And my mom was a public school teacher. And it was just us growing up, the two of us against the world, so to speak. And like I said, remember, my grandma read a book every day. So did my mom. So I used to joke, forget any attention in the family, I was going to have to write one of those books so they'd lift their nose up and actually pay me some attention. I like to give them a hard time about that. So when I decided that I wasn't going to be a novelist, I know my mom and grandma were probably disappointed, but I told them, I promise someday I'm going to. And so I started my journalism career, which lasted 20 years. I know I'm dating myself. I started young. I started when I was even in high school. But what was so important was I always wanted to tell stories about people, feature stories, inspiring and empowering stories. But when you're the most aggressive, meaning, wanting to do a good job, you always got the first story of the night. And we always say, if it bleeds, it leads, meaning I ended up getting crime stories and those hard investigative stories that you see that are not very uplifting or encouraging, right? And so that was really hard. And so during that time, as I was a journalist, I still wanted to tell these personal stories. And so one that I'm most proud about is I was the first journalist in the world embedded with troops in Bosnia in 1995 when President Clinton sent troops into Bosnia, US troops. I went with an Army Reserve unit and lived and did the drills and everything for a month. And I did a half-hour documentary, just my photographer and I. And we were very fortunate to win an Emmy Award for that coverage. Then fast forward to 2007, I was the first journalist in the world embedded with an Apache helicopter unit in Afghanistan. I was also at 3 different bases around Afghanistan. And so that was something I wanted to do, tell the human condition, the soldier stories. And in that case, I was with a National Guard unit. So the military has always been very close to my heart, and the sacrifices and what so many people, not just the military members, but their loved ones and their family and their children, especially what they give up and sacrifice to have their loved ones away from home when they're serving. I wanted to always find a way to reach out and to give back. And that'll be coming up. Put a pin in that idea. But what I did was, after I was, doing all of these hard news stories, I would come home and I needed to sort of refill my soul. And I would count on Christmas movies and Christmas novels to do that. The holidays were one of the few times I usually worked through Christmas, but I would try to watch those holiday movies and I would try to just be uplifted and fill myself with some joy and happiness. So I sort of used them as my escape. And so after I left Afghanistan, I did a documentary there and I earned my 3rd Emmy, which I was very honored to do, but I felt like there's more I need to do. I want to tell positive stories. So I started doing what's called travel therapy, which is my TV segment that I still do now. If you're in New York City, you can catch it on Good Morning America, Live with Kelly and Ryan and Rachel Ray. It's on during those times in New York. Not at the moment, of course, we are on hold like a lot of the world with everything going on. But it was actually a moment where I needed to get a surgery and I couldn't travel for 2 weeks, that I had the time, and it was around the holidays where I was watching these beloved Hallmark movies, that I thought, maybe I can write one. I always wanted to, I just never had the time. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. So I studied it. I studied When I Say That. I watched the show, and I challenge you now as you watch, because they're all on, right? Depending on when you're watching this. And as you watch, it's usually the first commercial break is about 18 minutes in, right? They grab you, they get you into the story. Then they're about every 6 to 8 minutes, you'll notice. So that first 18 minutes, then there's this near miss kiss. They're about to kiss, and then there's something that happens, and then there's everything's going great and the all is lost moment. So I watched them and studied them like an investigative journalist and said, I can do this. I can write this. So I started writing a story, and fast forwarding, that's what became the Netflix first original Christmas movie, A Christmas Prince. And the reason that movie went bonkers, and it did, it was the second most watched movie of all time for Netflix, not just Christmas movies, because I didn't have them. And the guess is that there was a whole new generation that was watching. Netflix at the time had tended to, this was just 2017, tended to be young, hip, and all of that. But this young hip generation had never watched these Hallmark movies and Lifetime movies, And so when all of a sudden they're on Netflix, they're thinking it's going to be an edgy Christmas movie. And it's this sweet, uplifting, heartfelt, hopeful movie. At first they're like, this is corny, this is cheesy, this is terrible, but I'm going to watch it again. And it became almost like people called it a cult movie because they wanted to watch it over and over. They made fun of it, but they loved it. When they were sad, they watched it. It would be streamed in July and August. People have watched it all day, every day. And then there were 2 sequels. Now, I didn't write the sequels because this is getting to the author part of it. I had also written the screenplay. As soon as I wrote A Christmas Prince, I wrote a screenplay called Christmas Camp. And I like the idea of people that maybe had lost their Christmas spirit, different walks of life, and for different reasons, would be sent to like a Christmas boot camp to find out what really mattered most. So let me say, of course, I have it here to show you because Christmas Camp. Now, this is what's interesting. I wrote the Hallmark movie first, and then I wrote the book. Most of the authors, if you talk to or you hear about them, they sell their books and they're made into movies. In my case, I wrote the movie. And finally, after all these years, I get to be an author, but it came by as kind of a funny way, of course, the way life is. So I wrote this movie. It was my, with Christmas Prince, it happened really fast. I wrote it and I learned they took it and they made it, and it's a collaboration, right? It's my story, but now there's directors, actors, everybody's getting involved in telling the story. It's become their story. So when I wrote Christmas Camp, the movie, I really fell in love with the characters and the concept. And I knew as soon as I gave it to the director and the producers and the network that I wasn't going to have anything to do with it anymore or have a say in how it was changed. That's really hard when you're a storyteller, but you have to know that when you're a screenwriter, that's your job. It's a collaboration. You're only one tiny part of the team, and it's no longer your story. So I thought, how do I keep it my story? How do I get to be the director? Write the novel. So I literally had this screenplay here and I used it as an outline. I never outline, but this was because it was done. And I wrote the novel to match the movie exactly. Now, of course, I got to have more details because I had a lot more time and didn't have the budget, but it is almost exactly mirrored. Now, I challenge you, if you get an opportunity to watch Christmas Camp, the movie, on Hallmark, because it's on Hallmark now, of course, but you can also stream it for, I think, $2 on Amazon. There's even a DVD. If you get a chance to watch it, first I say read the book, because the book is the story and the movie got changed a lot. I wrote both of them, and you think, well, how could they be so different? But again, screenwriter, you hand it over to the director, who was amazing. Jeff Fisher was the director, but I didn't get to go on set, or I didn't get to see the movie made. That's very common. A lot of people are surprised to hear these Christmas movies are often made in 16, 18 days. That's it. They call them turn and burn. They're moving fast. There are people right now finishing Christmas movies. And today is, oh my goodness, what's the day? The 5th or 6th of December. And they're going to be on before Christmas. They're literally still finishing. So they're working around the clock and it's fast. So a lot of times as a writer, you're either on another project or they just don't have time. There is no, like the feature films, sitting there chilling out and whatever. You're go, 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 go. But I was very blessed after I wrote Christmas Camp and then wrote the novel, that HarperCollins optioned the novel, and we did what's called a crash publish, where I had to write the book in a couple months and we had to get it out in a couple more months. And I remember one of the biggest honors is when May Chen, my editor at HarperCollins, called to tell me that libraries had asked for a special edition hardcover. I didn't know what that really meant. I mean, of course, I know what a hardcover is, but the fact that libraries had ordered this meant that HarperCollins was going to put out a special edition. And that was the biggest honor than any honor that I received for any of my books. And so with all my books now, there is a hardcover. So we have for Christmas Camp, and then my next novel was Finding Christmas, my novel this year, Christmas Ever After. I made sure that there's always a hardcover and of course a download and an audiobook. So I just want to make sure that everybody in the library can find a way, your local library, wherever you are, if you're with Marlis and that amazing library, that's fantastic. And I'm so honored that my novels are there and that you can reach out, and it's just the best way to connect. I just got my mom a Paperwhite, the Kindle. It's her favorite, and she's discovering downloading through the library, and she's on a lot of wait lists, but she's so excited about that, because before she'd go to Costco and she'd buy the books and she didn't have room to store them all because she just moved. So my mom's about to turn 80 and she is loving her Paperwhite. It's her favorite thing in the whole wide world. So I just think it's so amazing that now we have that kind of technology. So after I wrote Christmas Camp, the novel, then I had to it was in my contract with HarperCollins, I could write any Christmas story I wanted for my next book. I thought, wow, that's, I mean, of course I had to pass the idea by my editor, but she said, what do you have? Well, I had written another screenplay. I write screenplays very quickly. So I said, why don't I write the book? So this one, my second novel, and what's special about this, it was also written after the screenplay. But this is inspired by my dad, Karen Schaler, because it's about a girl and a scavenger hunt. Her boyfriend's a little grumpy, so she decides to send him on this amazing Christmas scavenger hunt. Only the wrong guy gets the first clue and starts following them, because he's a mystery writer and he thinks it's his agent trying to get him inspired because he says writer's block. So he's trucking along following these Christmas clues that are not for him. And he ends up at this romantic little town, of course, where she's waiting going, you're not the right guy at all. Of course, it's one of those, sometimes the wrong guy, could he be Mr. Right? Right, of course. So that's this story. And the cover, I talk a lot about my covers, but this is inspired, it's the gazebo in Leavenworth, Washington, a little Christmas town that's absolutely magical that I grew up near. And I actually have this gazebo, and every single thing, I work really hard with the cover designer. I actually design the cover before I write my first words, probably because I think of these as movies first in my head and I see them. And so you might have noticed this is little Dasher. He's my dog. And then this is Max. So super duper cute. In the movie, he is not a golden retriever. I will not spoil it. Wait and see what they cast in the movie. And for my book that's out this year, Christmas Ever After, we have Comet, a Burmese mountain dog. And what's really special is I'm so blessed that my books are being carried in foreign countries. And the Czech Republic is one of the countries that has just published Christmas Camp and Finding Christmas. And when the publisher saw that I had a Burmese mountain dog, he has one. He's like, I must have Christmas Ever After as well. And my books are also out right now in Germany and in Poland and in the UK. And that's such a blessing too. And it's been so much fun on Instagram. If you happen to be on Instagram, I'm at Travel Therapy. That's because I do a lot on my travel show. And I'm posting everybody's taking pictures of my book cover. So if you happen to have a book, even if it's your library book on your Kindle and you download it and want to do something fun and festive, just do the hashtag, the name of the book, or just tag me at Travel Therapy and I'm sharing. And I encourage you, if you love books like I know you do, to go and look at my feed, because I'm showing the readers in Poland. Oh my goodness. I don't know how their pictures are so magical. And they're regular folks, just like you and me. They're readers, but they're able to make it so pretty. And one of the writers said, well, we're quarantined as well, and it gives them something to do. So they get some twinkle lights and, they just make it super special. So that is a little bit about my journey. And before I go back, because I know Marlis has some questions. So when we talked about 5 movies, right? And 4 novels. So I'm gonna go quickly so we can keep up in case you have questions. So Christmas Prince was Netflix. Then Christmas Camp, the movie. Then the same time I was writing Christmas Camp, the book, Lifetime called and asked if I would write a movie starring Toni Braxton. Oh, I know, it was amazing. I was one of many writers that pitched for it, and I was very blessed to be chosen. And she plays a Scrooge, inspired by A Christmas Carol. So I encourage you to see that. It's on Lifetime. It's called Every Day is Christmas. And the reason is because right now, more than ever, that movie resonates. It really reminds us of what really matters most. And even though I wrote it and it aired 2 years ago, watching it this year, it's a whole different experience. Then after that, last year, I wrote another movie for Lifetime called Rediscovering Christmas. That has a snowflake theme. I don't want to tell you too much. And then the books we have, of course, we have Christmas Camp. And I did the novella, which I call it the sequel because of the movie world, Christmas Camp Wedding. So, you watch those Hallmark movies and you wait till the end and there's the kiss. And then you think, well, what happens? We know they have their HEA, their happily ever after. But I wanted to see one. The Christmas Camp Wedding has a lot of angst. There's a lot of humor and a lot of fun that goes along with it. Then, of course, Finding Christmas that has the gazebo. And then this year, Christmas Ever After. And Christmas Ever After, I'm calling it my Mamma Mia meets the Bachelorette style love story, because it is a special story to me. It's about a romance author. And remember Christmas Camp? Well, this is a new Christmas camp, different characters, but the same idea. She's going to host an author retreat at Christmas camp. And she's really hoping the people that come help her with some ideas for her Christmas book, her first one, because she's not really Christmassy. So she's thinking they're going to come and they're going to help her. The only problem is doing national radio. Somebody asked about great loves in her life, like, you're single, how can you write romance? And she said, I had great loves in my life. Well, she said love, but the guy thought she said loves, the host, and said, coming after the break, we'll meet who this great guy is. She was not happy about that. But meanwhile, her 3 ex-boyfriends all heard the interview and thought that they were talking about him, and they all show up at Christmas camp to win her back. So now you see Mamma Mia and the Bachelorette, because they plan these amazing Christmas dates. So this one, Christmas Ever After, I am also working on the movie script. Oh, and I promised that I would give a reveal here tonight. I told Marlis that I would, and I'm really excited before I pass it back to her. So Finding Christmas, I know I'm throwing all these names of these books up, right? But Finding Christmas, the scavenger hunt one, has just been optioned, the book and my script, for a movie. So hopefully this time next year, I'll come back and do another chat with you and we can talk about that being made into a movie. Fingers crossed. So that's a lot, right? But hopefully that inspired some questions from you. And I know, Marlis, you have some, so I'm ready to answer questions. Marlis.
Okay.
Marlis, did you go get some hot cocoa and cookies?
Well, I wish.
Oh.
Actually, I was in the mood for hot apple cider today. I've got a blend that you can add to your buy it off the shelf grocery store product. And oh, it's good.
Wait, look at, fill this up in my cup.
There you go. There you go.
I know. I have. Well, oh wait, one thing I forgot to say when I'm talking about that, all of my books, I have recipes and I have drinks, recipes. I have a hot cocoa one that's to die for, and I'm going to be putting on my website a free download, because I usually create real Christmas camps. I bring them to life. We can talk about that when we do some Q&A. But if you go to my website, karenschaler.com, you can download my DIY Christmas camp. So there's recipes from the books and activities. So I'm going to be putting that up in a few days. So give me a couple days, but it'll be there for y'all. So cheers.
Well, I've been busy over the weekend and trying to immerse myself into Karen's books.
Oh,
and
yay.
So the first one I did, because I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to get very far with all this reading with the amount of time I had. I went and did the novella Christmas Camp Wedding. So I am not doing things in the right order at all. I know.
Wait, that's the sequel.
But I was delighted to find the recipes at the end of the book.
Oh,
and thought, oh, that's nice and creative and an added plus to what you're enjoying in the story. And then I started listening to Finding Christmas. So you kind of gave away a little bit for me. I mean, I hadn't gotten as far as you shared of the storyline, but hey, I kind of thought, her boyfriend is not the right one for her. And this guy that she fights over with a Christmas wreath, he's going to be perfect. So,
well, and you know what?
I will still be able to enjoy it.
Well, I will tell you, it was no spoiler alert, because I've actually, some people have said that to me. You have never seen a Hallmark movie where there's one girl with 3 boyfriends that try to win her back, right? That's not been done in Hallmark or Lifetime or Netflix. So this one, I said the wrong guy shows up, but I didn't say they end up together. Sometimes the wrong guy shows up, and sometimes it shows her that the other guy is the right guy.
Okay,
Or there
okay.
could be a third guy.
I've got to wait to find out the
I'm
end.
telling you, the Karen Schaler way of writing is not traditional. And one thing I was really honored
No,
with Hallmark,
it isn't.
people were watching Hallmark, they said, we've never seen a Christmas camp type story like that I'm a little different, right? And so, especially
No.
with this new one. So never think you know exactly. I will say this, no spoiler, there will always be a happily ever after because it's a romance
Right.
book. But
Well,
the
yes.
romance might not be who
That's why we're listening to these. We want the happy ever after.
exactly.
Actually, I enjoy finding a Hallmark movie that isn't just totally recipe followed.
Exactly.
I like the one that twists it up and creates more and more problems instead of just instant, oh, it's going to be happily ever after.
Agreed, because that's not realistic. I
No.
think we all want, somebody asked me, I was doing a story for the Washington Post, and they asked me, why do you think, it was a whole story about why we gravitate towards Christmas movies. And they said this year, some people it's making people sad, and some people they're watching Christmas movies since July. And I said, I believe people gravitate, I can speak for myself and my friends, but it's a safe place. We'll use Hallmark as an example. We know when we turn on Hallmark, because of that cookie cutter brand and those very, very strong things, we know we're not going to be disappointed. We know there's going to be a happily ever after. We know it's going to be clean. Our 5-year-old can walk in. There's not going to be swearing. There's not going to be something that would be disturbing. And I think that we all turn to it like comfort food. You were talking about like cozies and it's the same. We just want something warm and safe. And Hallmark has always done that. Now, Netflix the last couple of years has also jumped in, and I've written 2 of my movies for, sorry, not Netflix, Lifetime. And they're also, one of the things when I was in the branding meeting, where they said, okay, we want this, they're looking contemporary and fresh, but you still have to have the heart of Christmas. And it's one of my pet peeves right now. And I don't have many because I'm Christmas Karen and I'm jolly, but because Christmas became very profitable, last year there was more than 90 original new Christmas movies on the networks, the Lifetime, the Hallmark, the Netflix, Ion, Up, all these different networks were cashing in on Christmas, which is great because I think we need these stories. However, I've even talked to some producers that I've chosen to pass on the project. They're like, yeah, it's a summer script. We're just going to throw in a tree. Yeah, we need some swearing, but we need it edgy. We need some lying and cheating. We need to edge it up. And I'm like, I don't think, right. I'm not disparaging because there's some out there now, where it's like trying to be hip and fun and sarcastic and crude. And I literally said, like on live TV, I'm like, leave Christmas alone. We have those movies. You can make a romantic comedy that's crude and rude, and I'm sure there's a place for it. I'm not a prude, but leave Christmas alone. And if you're going to do a Christmas story, whether it's a novel or a book, your main character better be Christmas. You can't just take a summer romance story and throw in a tree and say, oh, let's just sell it as Christmas. So sorry, I had to get that. So when your readers, I've seen a lot on Goodreads. My book was on NetGalley, and I'm really blessed. And one of the things I found, because you learn so much from your readers, from their input, one of the things I kept saying was, I was so relieved that this was a positive, uplifting story, and this is what a Christmas story should be. And I was so happy this was heartfelt. So many Christmas movies don't have any Christmas spirit or any purpose. And I'm not talking religion. Religion is not mentioned in my stories, but it's the heart and spirit and your faith, whatever your faith might be. My Jewish friend, we're about to celebrate Hanukkah coming up. My Jewish friend loves my Christmas stories because she goes, it's the same with my religion. It's about faith and family and community. Okay, in my case, it's Christmas. In her case, it could be Hanukkah or Kwanzaa. So I just think that you don't mess with the genre. And so I'm very protective of Christmas.
Good. But now, I was taking notes as you were talking, and I was trying to match, and it's not quite, because you said you write the script, then you write the book. So which movie matches Finding Christmas? Wait a minute. Finding Christmas is the one that's just going to be a movie.
Yes.
Okay. You've got Christmas Camp, and it's a movie, but then you talked about Every Day is Christmas and Rediscovering Christmas.
Yes.
So there's no books for those two?
Not yet.
Okay.
And the
That's why
reason,
they didn't match.
yes, and the reason is I'd love to ask your thoughts on this. And when people watch and you put this out there in the world, if there's a place to comment, please let me know. So A Christmas Carol, when I was asked by the Lifetime executives, they're like, Tony wants to be the Scrooge. And it was one line they gave me, we know, she's fabulous, but she's Scroogey. And in the beginning, she breaks up with her boyfriend, but then she goes through, of course, the visits in the night, and she learns it's him. I mean, her, not him. And then they get back together and they live happily ever after. This was their idea. And just a typical Scrooge story. Well, we've seen a lot, but I was hyperventilating going, okay, this story was written, what is the year? Like 16, when was A Christmas Story written? 1620?
Oh, good heavens, a long time ago.
1623, something like this. And I went and re-got the original, and I was reading, there's a couple lines I used from it. Thank you, Charles. Thank you. But when I looked at the story, I wanted to make it modern and fresh, but still, again, you honor the story. I really wanted to honor the story. So I could adapt that into a novel because it's very fun, but it's not traditional romance, because the Scrooge, and that was one thing the Lifetime execs were so funny. They're like, we need it more happy, uplifting, heartfelt, and funny. I'm like, you do know the story of the Scrooge, right? Because it's his journey. It's a personal journey. It's not a romance.
Right.
It's a personal journey. Now, in my case, I'm adding a romance, kind of, but it's really about her. Alexis is her name, Toni Braxton, in this movie. And so that's the only reason I haven't written it yet. And it's also just came out and I was doing my other book. But I might, because it's a magical story. And so I'm waiting. And then Rediscovering Christmas, I had 2 other stories. I kind of took the movie and I created the movie. And then I've taken pieces of it in different books, So I think that I might leave that one alone because I'm working on a new book for next year.
Ooh, good. Oh,
But
good.
very good on you. We were hoping that Hallmark, of course, your original idea is that Hallmark would have made Christmas Camp Wedding, and that still could happen, of course, So that's why we did the sequel, because Hallmark likes to kind of do that. And I think it's Christmas camp where everybody comes to this amazing, cute little place. I think every year a new group of people should come. This first year, there's a young dad.
With new problems.
Yes, exactly. That's my whole plan. So you call Hallmark and you tell them I'm ready.
There you go.
I love it.
Okay. So now we got that all figured out with.
I know my own family can't figure it out, Marlis. It's so I can't figure it out. It's so confusing. I wrote, how do you write 5 movies and 4 novels in 3 years? My brain is like.
Your brain must go almost as fast as your mouth. I'm teasing.
Oh.
It's the delightful to listen and to hear, because as I said in my intro, the thing that caught my interest was the insider information about how these Christmas movies, come to be. And so you write the script and you turn it over to them, and you're not hanging on to any of the details. And so they tweak it and adapt it. And
well, and there's something I can share about that, because I think that's a really great point to make. And I glossed over it pretty fast, but to kind of really dive in, because I learned being so new about it. So when you're a first-time screenwriter, you are hired, they'll buy I did what's called a spec script. So it was my script, nobody paid me, and then they bought it, and that makes it their script. And then they can do whatever they want. They actually could never call you again and say, see you, and what have you, which is really hard. And a lot of writers, they don't even know when their movie's coming out. I've met writers now at these conferences that I do. I'm about to do one in Seattle on Saturday, virtually, of course, for screenwriters up there. And you hear a lot of people that sell their first movie. They're so excited. They love their story. In some cases, they've worked years and years, and they never hear from the director, actors. They don't even know when the premiere is going to be. They don't get in. I say you create the prom, but you don't get invited. And there's a lot of different reasons. So you learn really quickly to try to find the producers that are going to help include you. I also know a wonderful writer. I just started a show called Christmas Karen, behind the story. And you would love it, Marlis, because it's all about going behind the scenes of the Hallmark movies. And I have on one episode, the director, one of the actors, and they talk about all those fun things, and they share photos from the set. And it's on my website, thekarenschaler.com, and you click on shows, and I'm doing different ones on Instagram, but the full hour episodes, if you want to binge, they're all living there at the moment before I upload them to other places. But what I did was to really, I didn't know these stories, right? And I created the whole world. They're all mine. Like my dad had jokingly said, wait a minute, you wrote it. Craft services wouldn't have a job, a director, an actor, wardrobe. Nobody'd have a job if it wasn't for your story, but you're not even included half the time. And I said, again, there's a lot of reasons, and that's not always the case. So what you want to do, if you're someone like me that loves your stories, if you can, keep the rights to write the novel. And I will tell you, a lot of networks will not let you have those rights. They want all rights. So I fought, meaning part of my negotiations. I didn't actually have to fight anybody, thank goodness. But I was real important. Like Christmas Prince, I didn't know any better. So it was my first movie, and I didn't know that I could have asked and tried to write the book. I would have loved to have had the rights to write that book. Absolutely. But all of that said, what you want to do if you really want to still stay involved is get in the Writers Guild. And the Writers Guild is a union, of course, and I think it's 10,000 plus people. I know less than, I think 10 to 15% are women. Most of Hollywood, both movies and television, still written, written and directed and produced by men. Large majority, large. And so in the Writers Guild, it all depends. Those credits you see on the scene? I never knew. I thought, oh, it's vanity. They come up. The only way in the Writers Guild to get in the union is to first do a union movie. And it's by the credit. When your name comes up, written by, teleplay by, story by, you get different amounts of points. And when you have enough points, you're invited into the union. And in my case, you have to do, don't quote me, Writers Guild, if someone's listening. It's like, let's say a half-hour show, you have to do 5 of them to have enough points to get in. But a 2-hour movie, which is what a Hallmark Christmas movie is, you get in for a 2-hour, because movies are harder, not harder, my goodness, TV episodes are really hard too, but because you have that time amount. Now, in my case, nobody wants to do union jobs because you have to pay more, right? If you're union, all of a sudden there's union rules.
Yeah, that's true.
I get a pension now. I get health insurance that the producers have to pay for. But fast forwarding, so if you're a regular writer and not in a union, you get paid totally fair. They take it, they go. And if they want to include you, great. If not, they could have their cousin rewrite it. There's always a question, even if you say in your contract that it was written by, they could kick you off, and then it's up to you and your lawyer to fight to get it back. It can be scary. And you got to know going in, it's tricky. However, if you're union, then if they want it, if the director gets the script and he wants it changed, they have to ask the writer. And then the director's still the boss. He could say, put in a pink pony. I want a pink pony running around that Christmas camp. And I'm like, I'm thinking maybe a reindeer, pink pony. And guess what? He's my boss. I'm a paid writer to do what they want. And I remember on the Lifetime movie with Toni Braxton, I had the executive producers that represent Toni. Toni was also an executive producer. And then I had the Lifetime executives who were phenomenal to work with. You always hear in Hollywood horror stories about them not understanding and the poor little writer. In my case, there was only one time, which is a miracle. Well, let's say one side just making it up like, I want a pink pony. The other one's like, I want a purple pony. And we were all on the phone. Who do I listen to? The network who's making the movie, who's paying for the movie, or the producer who I actually am working with to write the movie? But they both wanted something different. And they both hung up and called me and said, it better be pink, it better be purple. And I remember going, I don't get paid enough for this. I should be a therapist. You need therapy for this. But the point of it is it's a collaboration, because then somebody somewhere else, probably at Lifetime, because they usually win, it's their movie, says, I want a psychedelic pony, and we're having psychedelic, and that's what's crazy as a writer. I think as an author, it's definitely more isolating, because you're in your own little world and you get to create. And if you're lucky, you have people read it, or an editor or friends, but it really is all your control. And that's a beautiful thing, but you also get challenged. I'm doing notes right now on my Finding Christmas, because I'm adapting, and there will be a lot of changes. Still the heart of the story and all of that, but there will be changes, and I'm getting notes. And they always say it's the note behind the note. And I'm still a newbie in Hollywood. I'm like, what does that note behind the note actually mean? But it's a real growth as an author and as a writer. But if you're sensitive about your writing and you're going into Hollywood, I would advise you to keep your book rights no matter what, It's not about money. It's just about your sanity. So whatever they do to your movie, you can write the book and do it your way. That's my number one advice
Yeah.
if you want to do both.
Interesting. Wow.
Right? I
Very
told you I have all these little
interesting.
tidbits of inside information.
Mhm.
I know. And do you want to know about the snow? One of the Lifetime
No.
executives was quoted once saying, when he's reading scripts, I love telling these two quotes. When he's reading scripts, and I don't believe he's no longer there at Hallmark, but when he was, he would say, if I'm not crying, I'm not buying. So when he was, to see if the movie was going to be worthy of Hallmark.
Emotional.
And then
Mhm.
another one where an executive still there was like, no snow, no go. Meaning you're not going to see a Hawaiian, maybe now because there's new management coming in, new things are changing. We're seeing a lot of changes with, all of our movies with diversity and opening it up, which I'm happy about. I want to see the world around me. We're not going to talk politics or any of that, but I like that every one of us is being challenged to widen, whether, and that's good for me as a woman over 40 screenwriter that you don't usually see, that gives me an opportunity to maybe get in a writing room and to write a story, because you, like in Canada, to get special incentives, I'm in the Canadian Writers Guild as well. That's where we shot the Toni Braxton movie. You either have to use a Canadian director or a Canadian writer. And that's the way for Canada to make sure that Hollywood North doesn't just come take everything, right?
Got it.
I think that's smart.
Very smart. Yes, but it doesn't snow everywhere in the world.
No, it doesn't.
But people want to celebrate Christmas everywhere in the world. So I know that you're coming to me right now from Scottsdale, and I have family down in Glendale,
Arizona. Yeah.
in Arizona, just, a little bit west of you. And I've been there for a Christmas. In fact, there was a Christmas wedding in my family a few years ago. And so I saw the lights and the decorations, and me being from Minnesota, it's like, there's no snow. This isn't right. This just doesn't match.
Yeah.
But for those that have been born, raised, and lived all their life in the desert or in the tropics, you still have Christmas. And so, yeah, you should have some Christmas movies that are tropical.
Well, I think, what's funny is Christmas Camp was actually on the Christmas Karen Behind the Story that's on my website. I put Jeff, the director, on the spot and said, I want to know the real story. I know you shot it in upstate New York in July. It was like 100 degrees. And I had a sledding scene that you'll see in the book that got cut because of budget, but there's still snow on the trees. So I won't tell you, you're gonna have to watch the episode, but he talks about, you hear the blankets of snow. They're literally blankets, and they throw them and they shoot that corner of the street. Then they pick up the blanket and, throw it over here. Now, the high budget movies, you can always tell the Hallmark movies by the snow. They spray paint the snow, the trees, with something non-toxic, I'm told, but it's like a foam that they spray. And if you look really close sometimes, like the way the frame is shot, like let's say it's, like it's shot here, but if you look a little up here, all of a sudden it's not snow. Like if the camera moves a little bit out of frame, you can totally see it. So look for the spray
Like
paint.
moving off green screen.
Yes, and then look for the blanket of snow. And the real high budget ones get snowmakers.
Well, I was gonna guess that it would be a snowmaker that would be, generating.
That's too expensive for all of them. They have to find other ways around it, for sure.
I didn't know that they were made in such a fast and furious method, and
Casey.
I know that most of the scripts tend to focus on a household or a community, so there isn't a whole lot of generated necessity for background, and you can flip things up pretty easy, kind of like you would on a stage for a play kind of stuff. But I didn't know that they were done that quickly, and that they had a very small budget to work with and a small time period to work with.
They do. And it's amazing. A lot of the actors that we're seeing now, like I just was watching something with Dolly Parton, there's just so many amazing actors, and they do it because they love it. And they also do it. A lot of them are actors in different worlds. Who was it that I just saw? I can't believe I'm not remembering, but he's a dad saying, I can't show my son my action movies, you know? So he wanted to do something that his whole family could watch. And so they love it because some of these movies you can look on IMDb, they're $1 million for everything. That's
Yes,
editing, production, the movie
yes,
script, everything. And
yes.
1,500,000, a lot of the Hallmark movies, you know, and you get a couple of special ones and you can always tell because it has the stars. And one of the things that I did with Finding Christmas, so I wrote the script first, and I wrote Christmas Camp and Finding Christmas together. I wrote one, then I immediately wrote the other right after doing the Netflix movie, because I thought, oh my goodness, I'm on a roll. This is my shot. I'm going to break in. I want to have more stuff ready, right? Let's go. But with Finding Christmas, of course, I'm watching all of the Hallmark and Lifetime, and at the time Netflix had a few movies. I'm watching it nonstop. But there was one actress, and I can't tell you who yet, but this one actress, female, of course, she stood out. And Emmy in Finding Christmas, as you saw, is over the top Christmas. She loves Christmas. As a matter of
Oh,
fact, some people reading the book say they want to slap her because she's a little bit too much, like Christmas, Christmas. I love the lights. She's just crazy. I know my editor, May, she was so funny. She was like, a little over the top. I'm like, it's Christmas and that will make sense. You will understand why later. I will not do spoiler alert, but she just loves everything Christmas. So there's an actress that I just love. Her like inner spirit seems to come out. I don't know her, never met her, but she just exudes. So in my mind, I pictured her the whole time I was writing it. Now, fast forward 2 years later, when I partnered with a producer who tells me that, I was either Hallmark, Lifetime, or Netflix, everyone was being pitched, and some other people too were looking at it. And she said, and an actor is really interested and wants to come on as executive producer. And I'm like, great, who? And it was the actor that I had envisioned when I wrote it. I know, but I thought that was serendipity, and I am just crossing my fingers. She's definitely going to executive produce it and ideally star, but she does other things. So it's going to depend on if those weeks and shooting, they were going to try and shoot it this year. And then with COVID, that didn't happen. And we were going to try to shoot early, but it still has to be officially greenlit by the network. And, so I'm only allowed to tell my promotional things like, I have my book option, but I can't say what network or who, what, where, why. But it's exciting. It used to be you'd be able to figure it out really quickly, but now there's new networks, right? Jumping in.
There's enough competition that it's a wider
Exactly.
opportunity.
Exactly. I want
Well,
to ask you something though, Marlis, because I know I'm supposed to be sharing stories, but I'm just curious. One of the things that I do that I love on my Facebook is I'll ask my little Facebook fans, I call them friends, but technically, right, they're called Facebook fans. I ask them, what are some of your Christmas traditions? And because I am lucky enough I have not been to your lovely state yet, but is there any Christmas traditions in your community that you can tell me about that might be good for a Hallmark movie or a Lifetime or Netflix or any Christmas movie?
Well, our community is, for one part of our community is very buried or focused on the history of the community.
Oh.
So the people in Council Bluffs love to hear about days gone by. And so perhaps just brainstorming, it would be an idea that would reflect back, you maybe have the contemporary
Yeah.
heroine and or hero, but they're based on their generations of heritage and traditions that brought them up.
I love that. I love
Specifically,
that.
there's a man named General Dodge who was a Civil War hero and brought the railroad to and through Council Bluffs because he was good friends with Lincoln. And he built the community around several of these issues and thoughts. So something that would, reflect back to way back days gone by.
I love that.
And yet be a present theme. The other thing that I hear big this year, both locally and nationally is the focus on the spirit of Christmas through decorating with lights outside.
I was actually
And
quoting
quite
an
a few
article on that.
movies, quite a few communities have these drive-through experiences of lights.
Love
You
that.
know, where in some ways it kind of reminds me of Vegas. And you know, downtown old Vegas has this light
Yes,
show that goes
yeah,
on over your head for
yeah.
2 or 3 blocks. Something of that nature where you can drive through and there's lights all around you and or scenes as you drive that you can see. And because you know, we're not supposed to be out and interacting
Right.
as people, but in our own little car zone, we can experience some of the enjoyment. So there's a collection going on around town of addresses of where you should travel in the
Oh,
community
and you could
to
do a little
see
map.
all the
I
lights.
love
A
that.
map, yes.
That's a
And
fantastic idea.
that, I mean, you could work with
I
that idea.
I actually have that in my current book I'm working on.
Okay,
And I have that her street, her dad was in the military,
there
and
you
that
go.
and he would decorate like in July, like he'd have plans. He'd draw up plans because in case he was called off to service, he was little and he had the neighbors that would help him. So in case he
Oh,
wasn't there. But because they got bigger and bigger every year, other neighbors started and it became the street to
there
come.
you go.
And so you would come down, and I remember when I was little, my birthday's December 19th. So another reason Christmas,
Ooh, coming
Karen,
up
I am a
soon.
Christmas baby. And
Mhm.
that's all I would want for presents is, can I just drive and see the lights? And there's gosh, I'm going to forget the name of the street in New York City. I remember last year I went, it was like 55 below. It wasn't, that's exaggerating. That's Minnesota, but it was very cold. It was probably 20 below with wind chill. But I insisted that my friends come with hot cocoa, and we took the subway and we trekked out, and then there's a street that you can do, but it was magical. And I don't know, there's something about that. I did a story recently. It was quoted in Forbes because I put my Christmas lights out in July and my neighbor right over here, even though I haven't, we were doing social distancing, she can see mine and I can see hers, and it just brings us joy. And they say there's a whole story, and actually in one of the screenplays I'm working on, a different movie, a Christmas movie, but a feature film, I talk about the history of light. And it's interesting because even the Jewish tradition, of course we know.
Oh, the
Lamp,
candles,
the light.
yes.
But the
Yes.
light goes back, and it's all about the hope and the light. So I would love it if people can afford it now with the LED lights. And as a matter of fact, wait, hold on, in Christmas Ever After, thought it was really important. So, I always do the recipes. So I have my Christmas Ever After recipes.
Mhm.
I have to tell you about one. I know I was getting to something else, but I just saw it. So I grew up loving blueberries, blueberry muffins. And I also love cinnamon rolls. So I decided, it took me 5 tries because it has to be my original, the Christmas Lake blueberry cinnamon rolls. You have to see this,
Ooh.
Marlis. They're amazing and they're easy. And I'd never made rolls where with yeast and, like the real ones. It's from
Yeah.
scratch. They're amazing. Okay, then I have the Christmas Lake gingerbread XOXO cookies. Those are super easy to make. And that comes from a story. It's fun. I always wanted to make the gingerbread boys like you see in the movies, and they're doing all of this. So I bought this, and I was like in high school, and bigger is better. So I had this huge gingerbread boy, this huge thing. But every time I tried to get it off the cookie sheet, an arm fell off or a head fell off. And I started crying as a teenager. I said, I can't even make cookies. So I tell the story that these gingerbread snowballs, it's exactly the gingerbread boys. You just roll them up. Be done. Be done with it. That's why I call them XO. Now here's my Christmas. I have activities. My
Okay.
Christmas Lake edible bird seed ornaments. And so you use your decorations. I thought that was fun. And have you ever done this? This is so easy. My mom has a lot of birds in Washington State, and it's the pine cone bird ornament where you do the pine cone and the peanut butter or
Yes.
almond butter.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's that. But here it is. Okay, this is what I was going to show you if you can see it. These are my green friendly, what's the title? Christmas Ever After Green Friendly Christmas Tips. Now, this is before I knew we were going to be in a pandemic, and we have so many tips that we need just to keep going at the moment. But I said, use LED lights. I say we all love the sparkle, but when picking lights, look for LED lights that use 80% less energy than regular lights and can last 10 times longer. So I never knew they used less energy and lasted 10 times. I just knew they were good for the environment. So that's cheaper. So point is, back on point, Christmas lights, but use LED lights. I think they're a little more expensive when you first buy them, but they last 10 times longer. So there you go.
Yeah, they do cost a little more. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
So do you have lights at your house?
Well, back in my younger years, I would climb all over the roof putting lights
You
on.
would?
Yes. And, the scene from up on the roof is a whole different perspective on your community.
Sure is.
But that's a day gone by. That is a day gone by.
Wait, I think you just came up
But
with
I
a
just
title.
put the music in the car and drive and enjoy everybody else's.
Wait, I want to say this in case it happens. You will be able to play it back and say you heard it here first. Do you know titles are the hardest things? As a matter of fact, Christmas Ever After I came up with a year and a half ago. It was out in the press, and I even pitched it to Lifetime. It's about a romance author that goes to Christmas camp. Right, playing in the next day or two, Lifetime will be doing a movie called Christmas Ever After about a romance author at a B&B. So you like to say flattery, maybe we both just had the same great idea, but I have another title I'm working on that showed up somewhere else because so the point is Christmas titles, everyone takes them. They're impossible. There's literally hundreds, but I think you gave me one. Christmas Days, what did you say? What is it? Days Be Gone? What's the phrase you use?
Good heavens, you'll have to play back the
No, the
tape to
days
find
gone
out.
by. Christmas Days Gone
Days
By.
gone by.
And it could be something where maybe she finds a photo album of her great, 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 and then finds a legacy that needs to be, maybe the town had Christmas spirit and was the Christmas town, but nobody's talked about it as a Christmas town for hundreds of years. And then she finds a legacy and she has to bring it back. And that could be a community like yours, right? It could go all the way back to Lincoln.
It could.
So there you go. We just created a novel. That's how we do it.
Oh, that's easy. You just chit chat and brainstorm, and pretty soon, there it is.
Done.
Wow. So, Karen, if you will send me that book and audiobook,
Absolutely.
and then I will share them with folks that I'll pick from the folks that
Ask them
respond
questions.
to our website. Send me an email that says something good about your books and or your movies, and
Perfect.
we will share them, and I'll let you know later who gets them.
I love that. And the whole idea of Christmas Ever After was to give back, and to give back to libraries, and to give back to bookstores. And I am doing giveaways every week on my website. So depending on when folks see this, make sure you go on. Again, it's KarenSchaler.com, but my social media, maybe you can share the link. It's Karen Schaler Official on Facebook. So that's pretty easy. And you can find me there. And I'm doing giveaways of the hardcover, the soft cover, and the audiobook, because people want, different things at different times. But it's been such a pleasure to be able to talk to you and know that can share this with the folks that come to the library. And just thank you so much, Marlis, for all that you do during a pandemic to set up these interviews. I know we've spent a lot of time. You've organized this. That just means the world to me. You helped me try to give back. So thank you so much.
Well, Christmas spirit is really important. Absolutely. And we have received a thank you from somebody that was participating and saying it was fun and it was fascinating. And so that is delightful. And I am so glad that you made yourself known to me and that we connected and were able to do this tonight. And I could hear about the insider information. That was just really, really good. And I will look with new eyes at these movies.
Please do.
Especially the snow parts.
Exactly. And when you get a chance, look at those shows, depending on if you want the directors or actors, because if you love Hallmark movies, they have behind the scene pictures like a Bobby Campo, he was my guy in Christmas Camp. So they're so much fun. But thank you from the bottom of my heart for letting me share. And I want to wish you and the community and anyone that's watching a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for your presentation this evening, and to all of you for attending. May you all have a holiday season filled with moments of peace and joy as we look toward the new year and the recovery that we all need from this COVID. Good night.